Hello, my name's AJ Capuano.
And I'm Kaylee Capuano.
And you are listening to Atla Shrugged, the Avatar The Last Airbender podcast.
We're married. I've seen the show many, many times. This is AJ's first watch through.
I've never seen it.
Episode 4. We are back, or you're here for the first time. We're only, like I said, 4 episodes in, so this episode is
brought to you by Colgate, and we are joined today by Casey Tranter. Casey, say hi.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Casey is
my best friend. If you did listen to episodes 1 through 3, I think I mentioned her every single one so far. So she's here today.
I think you're right.
All right, well, I'm Casey. I have been watching Avatar The Last Airbender since it probably came out, just like Kaylee. We have watched the show together several times. I can't even tell you how many times I've watched this show through and through. It's so great. I would say that I identify most with probably Katara, and I am 100% a waterbender.
Thanks, Casey. Okay, so I feel like in order to get what goes on in this episode, it's very story-driven. It's very imagaic, if that's a word. It's very image-driven and
imagaic, everyone. Imagaic, everyone.
I don't know. Is that a word? If it's not a word, then
now it is.
I apologize sincerely on behalf of all ignorant dudes everywhere. So yeah, it's a dense episode, and I feel like we sort of have to take it back to the previous episode. Casey, can you tell us where we're coming from here into episode 4?
So where we're coming from is Aang just kind of figured out that the Airbenders are no more, that the Fire Nation had wiped out the Airbenders. So that made Aang realize that he pretty much lost his family, kind of lost everything that he had already known. Which again, they'll go back to the story more in detail later, but I don't want to spoil that any. So basically you're coming from Aang being in such a feeling of loss that coming into this episode, it's pretty upbeat, it's fun, it's enjoyable. And even with Zuko, like the whole third episode is very, I would say, goes with like loss and how these characters are feeling between Zuko and Aang.
It's definitely,
and I think
like,
that's important.
Definitely the moment that it crashes down on Aang that the whole world has changed and he missed it, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And how he doesn't really know how to navigate this world anymore because a lot of it has changed from what he knew when he was before he was stuck in that iceberg.
Now, because this is episode 4 and I'm just happy that my best friend is here doing this fun thing with my husband and me, I will take a moment to kind of paint where Casey and I found ourselves in the iceberg. Shout out to John and Lisa Tranter, her lovely parents who took me on spring break to Siesta Key, a lovely, lovely, beautiful place for a week where Casey and I...
Oh my God, I love this story. Yes! Okay.
Where Casey and I stayed in our hotel room almost the entire week, watching nothing but the entire Avatar The Last Airbender series together for the very first time.
Such nerds.
We also just sat there and watched it the entire time, and my parents thought we were absolutely psychotic.
I mean, now that I'm 27 and like pay bills and have like bought a car as an adult and stuff, like, yeah, I'd be pissed too.
Yeah, you paid for everyone to go, and these 2 kids are doing the exact same thing that they would be doing at home. Oh,
yeah,
boy.
but we were together then.
Exactly.
It didn't matter.
It sounds perfect.
And, you know, doing a run a day, training for track, and then going back inside and watching Avatar.
You guys are so dedicated.
They did invite me back, and we never stopped watching the show, so point proven. This is an awesome episode, and the reason Casey's really here, this is called The Warriors of Kyoshi. And if I'm not mistaken, Suki is, if not your favorite character, one of your favorite characters.
Yeah, she is definitely one of my favorite characters. Like, she's so much more than just being a female in this show, and I think the show really shows that women can be more. And for this coming out in 2004, you don't really get to see those strong feminine characters, and in this episode alone you get to see 2.
Yeah, Yeah, 100%. This is way ahead of its time. Here we go. Another thing making it way ahead of its time and really expounding on these issues that were sort of scratched on in previous episodes. But this one, if that was a scratch, this is like this comes at you and mugs you in an alley. And it says, bam.
That's pretty much what Kyoshi does when she meets Sokka, too.
Yes. Okay, we'll get there. So,
Are we ready to start talking about episode 4?
Yeah, I'm ready to jump right into it.
Netflix, you should just get rid of the skip intro feature on the Avatar.
Wind.
We don't need a skip intro.
Earth.
You don't skip the intro. Okay, go
Fire.
on. So after
Air.
those lovely 50 seconds,
Kool-Aid.
narrated by Katara, we see Zuko. The episode starts, and we see Zuko in his cabin on the ship. There are 4 candles in front of him, and he is meditating, and as he breathes, the flames are expanding and contracting, perhaps like his lungs.
Yeah.
So we see already, bam,
Yeah.
this is what the firebenders are like. And then Iroh comes on in.
Awesome. I want to be like Iroh.
Yeah,
I
Iroh is
fully
awesome.
support that. I fully support being like Iroh.
Drink tea all the time and don't judge a book by its cover. I think Avatar does that well. You know that the Fire Nation is the bad guy, quote, quote, but you like Iroh.
Right.
How could you not? So, okay, Iroh comes on in. He's like, I got bad news for you, nephew. He's like, I can handle it, man. And no, you can't, because we have no idea where the Avatar is.
It's so great. It's so cheeky because he was expecting news, a development. It's not a news story if you go on and say, speaking of the case of the blah, 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 nothing happened in it, That's not a news story. Zuko was expecting a development and he didn't get it.
He did not get it. He definitely did not get it, and he didn't take it well either.
He had a bit of a flare-up at that.
Lol, a bit of a flare-up.
I know.
More good elemental humor.
Oh, good old elemental humor.
Like, wow, episode 4 literally is just like, scene. It moves so fast. So,
Yeah.
Case, I really want you to jump in here on the conversation between Sokka and Katara while they're flying over the ocean on Appa, talking about the natural order of things.
I'm not going to mansplain stuff. I'm just going to hang out in the background.
Yeah, good plan. So I think there's a lot of development that happens with Sokka throughout this episode. He's always lived with a really bossy sister. Katara I would consider being fairly bossy, as she's fairly young for her age.
Fairly young
But
for her
Katara
age.
she's young, but I wouldn't consider like a 12, 13-year-old that bossy, but Katara's pretty bossy. She also has been probably dealing with Sokka for a long time, knowing that he needs bossed around a little bit to
Yeah.
to do what is supposed to be done. Sokka very much, like, he has been pretty much the only man in the tribe, so there hasn't been any other like men in his life to really be like, no, females are pretty great. Like, they do a lot more than just sewing your pants, like we saw.
And by the way, good luck sewing your pants.
Yeah, exactly. Which is exactly what Katara did. He threw him back in his face. So I think Sokka very much comes into this episode just being like, oh, I'm a man, I'm better.
He's learned a gender role that he has no example for.
Yes. I think this episode does a lot of just showing a little bit of growth in Sokka's area. I think that's important, especially to keep in mind as he was treating Katara in the beginning to how he treats Suki in the end.
Like, yeah, I was 10 or 11 when I was watching this. So I'm pretty sure Sokka was my first cartoon crush. Pretty sure.
Mine was Zuko.
And it's just because he was so sweet, because he just so fundamentally misunderstood all the things I was mad about too, but he always fixed it so fast. He learned so quickly to just treat women equally.
Yeah.
So the natural order of things gets immediately interrupted when Aang takes us on our first Team Avatar adventure to ride the elephant koi. Aang doesn't tell Sokka or Katara that they're going to ride elephant koi.
Yeah, all he says is that you don't need pants.
Don't need...
There are so many places, where you don't need pants, and this was one of them.
I think this might be the only one.
This is interesting because it's now episode 4. Aang has been kind of like this mystic, cool figure to us, and he has moments of humor, but he's still like this fantastic hero to us. And then suddenly, like in this episode, he's annoying right off the bat.
turns into a Tom Sawyer figure as soon as he takes off his clothes and hits the water.
That's it. And I see this, now from adult eyes, and I think that that's what's cool. Kids are smart enough to see this and learn that about Aang, as he just saw his entire home ruined, and it's been ruined for 100 years, and now he has this need to impress. Because the only people who understood him are gone. And Katara is the main person that he wants to impress.
I feel like people in general, if you're going through a moment of pain or hardship, that's when people who have a proclivity to grandstand or showboat in the first place, that's when they will sort of lean on that as a crux. And I love that about this episode because it shows that Aang is... he's a deity, but he's also very much a person, and this is how he's sort of dealing with what had happened.
With his super cool powers, he's riding on giant fishes.
Some people flex by buying new sneakers or, getting a convertible finally. Aang says, let me ride that big old fish.
Unfortunately for him, the world is very different, but it's probably also the same. He just didn't know that there was a giant sea serpent lurking between the waves. And Casey's got great interest in mythology, and I recognize sea serpent. I put in my notes in all caps, Leviathan, ? But why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so unagi in Japanese actually means eel. So basically what this is just this enormous, powerful eel capable of firing large jets of water from its mouth at high velocity. So I read a story. Yeah, so I read a story a while ago. It's very similar to something in Malaysian mythology. It's like the abaya. I know I'm not pronouncing that right. I am not fluent in any language.
Is that with a B?
I know.
Abaya?
Abaia.
Abaya.
Yeah, and this one dwells at the bottom of lakes, and it's said to be a protector of the creatures that live in it. So we don't really see that completely. I mean, maybe the unagi was trying to protect, but it is said that anyone who is foolish enough to try and catch a fish in its lake are going to be overwhelmed by a large wave from the thrashing of its powerful tail.
Ooh.
Or causes a rainstorm that floods and drowns those that cause harm to its lakes or its animals.
Wow.
So I felt like that was like very, very similar to kind of what the unagi does, even though I'm not sure if the unagi has more of a malicious intent or a protective intent.
I mean, sorry, go ahead, AJ.
Now to primitive cultures, anything bigger than you and that can kick your butt is something viewed as with malicious intent. But I don't necessarily feel that this thing was cast in a malicious intent, at least by the end of the episode. But, it's fairly obvious.
What's good about kids shows, too, is A, awesome story. Thank you for that background. B, these writers nail things that people are afraid of. I remember watching this episode and going, because, true story, one of my deepest present still fears is basically the dinosaur from the new Jurassic Park, the underwater one. I know that it doesn't exist.
Speaking of...
There's only part of the ocean that's been explored, so it could be real. Who knows?
Oh, who knows? Anyway.
It's more likely that something like that is real than isn't.
Yeah, you're just...
There's so much under there.
Yeah, so I like that the serpent is so terrifying, or the eel is so terrifying, but like it's a kid's show, so of course nothing happens to him.
Like it does look pretty evil. What struck me is this thing, as if you're looking from inside the Inagi's mouth. You take on, as the viewer, the role of like the Inagi, of like the Inagi's digestive system.
Yeah.
Watching his fate, the potential of his fate coming towards him, and I understand why you're scared. It was effective.
Yeah, and I mean, even later throughout the series, like you will see, like the creatures that they come up with. Like I always look them up because I always think they're going to be based out of mythology or something like that, because that's kind of what I look into. But like, they're such these magnificent creatures that you're like, how does someone come up with that on the top of their head at 3:30 in the morning or something? You know, like it's nuts.
It's not off the top of their head at 3:30 in the morning. Sorry, I'm a nerd here, but I encourage you to look up any detail, just anything in any episode that strikes you as interesting, just look it up because it's probably a thing.
That's what I did after watching this episode. If you get me started. Then, but yeah.
So we're in the water. Aang really wants to impress Katara. So that's what that sequence is you see Aang riding this fish and then Katara looking at him with her, a little bit glossy, a little bit disappointed eyes. And then she turns around and walks wherever she's going. Meanwhile, Aang is distracted. Sokka, being Sokka, is looking at the dangerous thing that his little boyfriend is doing and sees that there's something dangerous in the water. They together then start calling out the danger. Oh no.
Music nerd note, the score uses the same 2-note interval that was used in Jaws. 2 notes that are right next to each other on the keyboard going. But I feel like what the music does here with these legato notes, it's like that's the surface of the water. Like the wah, like these long like notes. That's the surface of the water, then lurking underneath. Because it is. It's like underneath. It's like a contrabass or something. That'll probably get cut out, but.
So maybe we can all just try to get on the same page with Aang. Even though he was showboating and it was clearly super dangerous, it didn't go his way at all. He's embarrassed and then feels shame for making his friends, the only 2 friends he has, worry. And then he's about to go into this new village.
I think that sets the thematic tone for the whole episode. I think we're going to be talking a lot about humility through as we talk about the things that happen in this episode.
Definitely.
In my opinion, it is an episode about humility.
I can see that, definitely.
So side note, does Aang have any spare underwear? Like, he gets down to his skivvies and he hops in. Does he have any spares? I don't think he does.
I would err on the side of no.
Okay.
Appa's got a pretty big pack up there. And Katara's competent. She's probably checked to make sure.
On the,
I mean, episode 1 of Pokemon, Ash's mom, makes sure we all know he has underwear in his backpack. So maybe it's assumed in cartoons. Maybe it's one of those things, too.
Which is weird because the Ash in the games never changed clothes. Not once.
You're right.
No matter how much I wanted to.
Every new season. Okay, so...
Sorry.
And back to Avatar's Last Airbender.
They are captured by the villagers.
They're captured by the villagers.
The Kyoshi warriors.
Yeah, what do these villagers look like?
Dope.
Agreed. That's okay. So you did a lot of research on the Inagi. Am I saying that right?
Yes, the Nagi.
Okay. So the Inagi jumped out at you. What jumped out at me was all of this sweet makeup. And I have a theory. Maybe now is not the right time.
Or it might be the perfect time.
Okay. So we see these folks and they're in this makeup. And that makeup instantly made me think of the Japanese art form of kabuki theater, especially with the fans and the traditional dress. Now that could just be because they're honoring a tradition and it doesn't exist in this, but I feel like that's an intentional allusion to kabuki theater. Why do I think that's important? Okay, so the experts at Wikipedia have agreed that...
Wikipedia tells us
Okay,
that.
no. You guys will like this, okay? So kabuki theater is typically known right now, sort of like the Tabernacle Boys Choir or whatever, with the castration, whatever. They made it an all dudes affair, even though it didn't used to be. So in 1603, kabuki theater was sort of formalized as like an art form. It relies on a lot of vignettes where the actors are standing still. A lot of the emotion is conveyed through the dress and the makeup that they're wearing, which has this distinctive sort of, like white painted faces with exaggerated facial features and accentuated lips, stuff like that.
Yeah, the spectacular thing about this tradition is the color.
Right. So we got this color, whatever. And so kabuki theater, it started out as an art form, and it would be an all-female cast because it would be sort of a glorification of the feminine spirit, whatever. For an overwhelming majority of kabuki theater's history, though, it has been played by all dudes. And guess why? In 1629, it was converted to Yaro kabuki, which means young boy kabuki, because the emperor and the order, the status quo, whatever, thought that the women were making an erotic display, a feminine display, and this was seen as indecent. Yeah.
No, what do you think that they wrote that on purpose?
That was my hunch. I was going to wait for you guys to deny that.
Crazy coincidence.
Yeah, I don't really like that. It sounds about right.
Right. So I thought maybe, so we get people, they're in either traditional dress or, as I'm theorizing, this intentional allusion to kabuki in an alternate universe where all was right in the world. Men weren't awful, as they were in certain points in history, and the women kept doing kabuki because it's their thing, and it's a display of their strength. Yeah.
So way to go, Kyoshi Warriors.
And I went into like the face paint a little deeper, and it says like the white stood for the treachery, suspicion, and the readiness to visit evil deeds upon others. This was a side that the Kyoshi Warriors showed to the outside, like outsiders that come into their village. And then the red symbolizes their honor, their heroism, and loyalty. And those were hidden to uninitiated, but shown to the group's sworn members.
Wow. So the meanings of the colors are only known to those who are warriors.
So the Kyoshi Warriors are a real thing.
No, I found it on the fandom page about
Oh, okay. So this is
the ones we're talking about.
This is within the lore of Avatar, right?
Yes.
The Kyoshi.
Yes,
Okay. I
the
thought
lore of Avatar itself. No, I think you could be completely spot on that, though. I do feel like a lot of these
Definitely
things have
based
been
off
taken from history and taken from other areas, that I think like that could be very, very accurate, especially with Sokka coming in trying to learn their fighting style.
Oh,
my gosh,
we can't jump to there. I gotta give that some sweet moments. So let's go to they've been captured. And this is like, I literally laughed out loud at this point because the first thing you see, and you I think see from their perspective, like the blindfold's taken off of you with that wipe screen. Good animations.
Right.
Then you see one homely, normal looking man from this village, and he says, "You three have some splaining to do." And it just breezes past it, but this episode's awesome. It's just packed with jokes. So we learn a few things that I think are important, not only the history and stuff we've talked about so far with the Kyoshi Warriors, but number one, we learn pretty much immediately that thus far, they have abstained from the war. So they have been disconnected, not involved in any of the violence or warfare, and they don't know why this dude is coming in and trying to destroy their town with the Unagi. But also, most important to me, these are not benders.
Right.
They're not benders at all.
But they have a history that's so woven into that of the Avatar anyway, as is evident by
the statue.
The big old statue, yeah. They put the Avatar on a pedestal. Literally.
Mm-hmm.
So Kyoshi, the warriors, the city, all of this is named after Avatar Kyoshi, who came before Avatar Roku, who we met last episode.
Trendsetter. The fan.
Yes.
The garb.
Some very competent people, it seems.
Yeah.
So this whole thing with Aang, we're used to Aang being the life of the episode, and he's just hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. And here, it's like they doubt him, and then he says, "I'm the Avatar." And this is a very like Jesus / like I am the superhero, Superman moment. People doubt him, and then what gives people belief in him is he's an airbender, which is a miracle. There aren't any airbenders. So he shows them, I am who I say I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like his ID badge.
Right.
It surprises me that people aren't more skeptical about what he is. Just because, like, I mean, is it really that hard to believe out of how many areas of airbenders there were with all the different temples? Like, there wasn't one other one that survived
that made it over there, which is cool, right?
Yeah.
But then think about, this town is called Kyoji, right? Okay. Think about how they treated Aang as soon as they figured out that he was the airbender. They're not just giving that that kind of treatment to anyone.
Oh,
If somebody, if they were the type of people who would accept that at face value and not question it and not ask for, hey, if you're so airbender-ish, why don't you bend some air real quick? If they were just like, oh yeah, I believe you, then people could take advantage of them whenever they wanted.
Right now, like AJ, you really don't know much about the interconnectedness of Aang's past lives, the other avatars, but to me, I don't know about you, Casey, because I think the skepticism totally makes sense at this stage, and just not thinking about maybe anything about this in years. But I, right now, watching this, just saw they knew the Avatar. They knew Kyoshi, and they based their entire culture off of what she taught them. So they, in a way, when they saw Aang, yeah, they probably knew him.
Well,
He's the Avatar.
And I mean, it makes sense because, like, Aang's thing is he gives hope. Just people seeing him, seeing that the Avatar is alive, like, gives hope. But, like, it worries me that they didn't question it at all.
Right.
Like,
did you hear the news?
As a community, no one went like, okay, are we sure about this? Like, should we second guess this? Like, no one did that.
I want a VH1 behind the music. I want them going back to the city council meeting and them being like, okay, so you guys are gonna think this is weird.
I'm sorry, was that item on the agenda?
Like, not one person was like, okay, anyone could just be super light on their feet. Or why don't you, like, I don't know, do your little airball thing or fly using your staff. Something like that.
Well, dude, but
Right.
He does all episode, and we see how quickly the tricks and the cool stuff gets boring for people. And then Aang gets depressed again. But it is cool that I guess that he's got this, like, little, like, girl posse. Like, he's 12 and Katara is 13, so these girls are, like, 8, 9, and 10. I think by my knowledge of cartoon character height and voice pitch. But these girls, also, I don't know about you, Casey. I do know about you, Casey. What am I saying? Not relatable at all. I was never one of those girls that was in the band of girls or fanning over boys. Not anything wrong with that. Sounds fun.
I mean,
but
out of
not
any
a
of
thing
the
I
guys
did.
out of any of the guys that you're gonna, like, fangirl over, it's not gonna be Aang.
No, it's not going to be Aang.
It's just not gonna be Aang.
Who's this strange bald boy with tattoos?
I mean, I guess he has
Tattoos and
but-
bald at that age, my mom would go, probably not.
Exactly.
And ball patty.
Yeah, so Aang still is, like, getting more and more impressive. I like the cutscene back to Zuko for a minute because it's funny, like, we know that there is tension building and that we can expect Zuko to come into the episode just like Team Rocket's in every episode and blah, 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 blah. But this is literally just Iroh and Zuko sitting at a table, and Iroh's like, are you gonna finish that? And Zuko, like, blows up, I was gonna finish it later.
Just the whole Iroh Zuko dynamic it's just so great.
It's amazing. It's
just so great. They nail it. It is on point. There's perfect comedic relief when you need it.
Agreed.
But there's always things to, like, build the tension too.
Exactly, because they're largely absent from this episode, and so it kind of reminds you of this prescient threat.
Yes.
AJ, can you give Casey and me some insight into what Zuko might be feeling, in the midst of angst and puberty at 16 years old?
Oh, like
as a boy?
As a boy. Angst and puberty at 16 years old leads you to believe that it makes you rush everything. Everything feels like it's do or die, and everything is about you at that age, too. I can't speak for everyone, but that's how I felt at 16. You were concerned with the short term, and if you set your mind on something and something stood in your way, not that you were necessarily really powerful against it, but that you were made agitated by it.
Well,
some
pubescent rage.
Oh, the angstiness of Zuko makes me laugh.
So, okay, good comic fun. Then we go back to the Kyoshi village, and I just want to say first wardrobe change for Sokka and Katara into their less we're in Antarctica clothes. It was a good look.
It's a good fit.
I always thought the wrappings on Sokka's arms looked really cool.
They're not initially welcomed, but eventually welcomed. They went from invaders to esteemed guests.
We don't get Katara much of this episode, so we're going to spend some time now on my boy, my favorite character in the whole series. I'll probably say that every episode too, Sokka rocks. Sokka, makes the argument just before we get the cut to him actually going to the Kyoshi gym, and he is emphatic. I'm not scared of any girls. I'll go.
Yeah, I like how he just goes like, I'm just looking for a place to work out.
Yeah, he's
sure
like so cool.
Sure you are.
I'm the toughest warrior in my village, actually.
Right.
And then he just gets destroyed.
Yes, he does get destroyed. So he has sort of a preconception of what it means to be a woman that you guys were touching on earlier. How does he present that here at I would assume it's a dojo?
Dude has never seen a girl his age before, and he is so excited and so Sokka.
Yeah,
right.
And like, Sokka not eating is rare, and when he's not complaining about eating or trying to find food, like, there's a whole big character development coming on when he's
Something
not complaining
is eating
about
at
food.
him.
Yes. If he is not, that is an excellent observation. That's why you're here, Casey Tranter.
Heck yes.
So yeah, let's talk about that. Let's dive in. Sokka, tough guy. He goes in, he tries to show him up. Literally, it's so stupid. Not only, like, right before does he get his butt just completely trashed, he does one little move, and Suki just, like straight arms, like, just puts her fan out, and instant rock solid stop.
And Suki plays it so well, too. She's like, okay, I'll entertain the thought that you weren't ready. Like, I'll entertain it. I mean, I know I'm better, don't worry, but...
Like most of us 16-year-old girls, Suki was aware that this boy was a little dumb.
Well, girl or not, that's what strength looks like, is, okay, I will entertain your excuse, and then I'll prove it wrong.
Yes.
That's why Suki is fantastic.
And this is what, like, warms my heart about Sokka so much. So she beats him up, and then he does a complete 180. He doesn't wallow in it. He doesn't make himself feel bad or puff up or go talk trash about women. He then literally goes and sits before her and humbles himself and says, I need help because you're way stronger than me and I have some responsibility. So can you teach me?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think that's one of, like, the most admirable things about his character. He's just willing to be like, okay, there are ways that I can be better as a warrior for my village, for my sister, for the people around me. Like, this is something I should learn.
I've seen that subtly before.
Mm-hmm.
This is like black and it's visual too. It's a visual, like, I'm putting myself at a lower level than Suki. I know when I'm wrong, and I'm going to be humble.
Like, this is a few,
but only when somebody tells me.
This is only a few second scene, but that was the moment I think I was like, yep, Team Sokka. The switch flipped because suddenly Suki was gonna beat him up, and he was gonna beat her up first. And that moment, she was his equal. And I, as a girl in high school who couldn't wrestle, or, like, we could, but, like, it isn't normal for girls to play football and all these other, and baseball and all these other sports. He wasn't afraid to beat up a girl because she was his equal.
Tell me that you beat up a boy until he said, I have much to learn. Haley, please tell me that happened.
I like to fight with words, not with fists.
Though I have slapped someone once and it did the job.
Yes! Okay. She's being modest. I bet it hurt. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not here to brag on myself, but I will brag on Suki because she is, as good as the Olympians.
Oh, yeah. I literally have in my notes, Suki is the OG here. I have that, like, so many times throughout my note. Or, like, Suki is dope. Like, throughout.
I can tell at this point we've just met Suki, but Suki isn't going anywhere. I'm a huge fan of that because the groundwork laid here is stronger, in my opinion, than any groundwork laid in episode 1. But this is like, oh, I have already met her.
So episode, I feel like 1 and 2 were just, like, getting you into the story. Pretty fun, pretty lighthearted. And then episode 3 is really where this kind of begins, where you see the backstory, where you really get these, now you're starting to get these character developments and going really in depth and like the plot of the entire season.
And it's like 22 minutes. There's so much that you learn in this episode. This really does affect the entire series.
Yes, I agree. Very, very much so.
You learn so much.
After this great scene, we cut back to Aang, right?
Well, Aang and Katara, yes. This is one of those moments, you know, the passive-aggressive thing you do with your sister or your friend or your mom or whoever, when you're like, so I'm going to go do this. Okay. Yeah.
This is where, like, Aang kind of is like, well, I'm going to go try and ride the Unagi, hoping that Katara is going to stop him and be like, no, that's dangerous, like giving him the attention that he wants, the attention that he's getting from all of the other girls, but he doesn't really want it from the other girls. He wants it from her, but she's not going to give it to him.
Okay, Casey, let's have some chat about this. I know Katara is not your favorite character, but she is absolutely mine, and it is because of this characteristic in her that is bossy, that is too responsible, and that can't have any fun. I
think when I was younger, I didn't like Katara because she was bossy, but now that I'm 25-year-old, I'm over here like, yep, all right, I identify very much with Katara.
Oh, I mean, just so, at this stage.
Watching it now, I have a new appreciation for Katara. I definitely was more into Zuko. That still won't change. But
Zuko forever.
Yeah. But like that's the thing about Katara.
My heart will go on.
He's so great.
On.
But like Katara in this, like she's just so jealous. She's so jealous about these other girls.
She is jealous. She's so jealous.
She's so jealous.
But she doesn't know how.
Is Aang authentically calling her out?
No, Aang has no idea. Aang is completely oblivious. He has no idea.
Aang doesn't understand yet that Katara doesn't know how. She doesn't know how to be a kid. It was robbed from her. She has to be responsible. Yes. She doesn't know how to have fun. She doesn't know how to let go. And she's furious with him for having more responsibility than her and being reckless.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay.
I'm so glad.
Only appreciation for this episode.
That clicked for you?
Mm-hmm. And that clicked.
So, yeah, my sweet, sweet Katara. That's what we know about her. Aang and Katara, I think, this passive-aggressive little exchange, that shows us that there's already love, familial love, growing between them, because you don't have passive-aggressive fights like that with people you don't care about. Then he goes off with this band of little girls, and when they get bored of his tricks and it's in the evening and they walk away, Katara is already coming out there to greet him to make sure he didn't do something stupid. But they make amends so quickly because already they're family. And she said that at the end of the last episode. We're family now.
You know, he got too big a head. He got dessert for breakfast. He got ladies fawning and whatever. And then his coming around moment was when he realized how fickle that sort of thing is.
Aang told us at the end of episode 2 he never wanted to be the Avatar. And so far, since he's been back 100 years later as the Avatar, he's basically had no one but Sokka and Katara be, in Sokka grudgingly, be excited to see him. So yeah, he is overwhelmed with it. So overwhelmed with it.
It's like the spelling bee champ. The spelling bee champ doesn't want to be a spelling. The spelling bee champ does not start rocking spelling bees so that he can be on morning news shows. But he rocks spelling bees. He gets on morning news shows, and he's like, I am loving it.
That's
morning
it.
News shows
those
don't
kids,
book him.
Those kids have nerves of steel.
Right.
Spelling bees.
And the morning shows don't book him anymore, and they're like, where's my kingdom? My kingdom of sand.
Yeah, the spelling bee groupies.
So he does go out there and is going to get attacked by the Unagi, and Katara, being not the Avatar, is still so impressive. More impressive to me at this point. She swam out to a sea monster at rapid speed. She doesn't know how to waterbend. Teaching herself to do that for the first time to rescue him. She is incredible. Fearless.
Yeah, no, that saving Aang showed her so much about her ability to waterbend and herself in general. that I think is like huge for Katara.
She literally saw, if I don't step up in a big way, this is over. I have to protect him. And it was an instant decision. That's how you know a person is brave. She didn't think about it. She did it.
And then once he swallowed water, she did it again to get the water out of his lungs. Like,
yes, that was so cool.
There are two things she didn't know how to do ahead of time, but by saving Aang, she was like, oh, so part of this is inside me, and part of this is just me unlocking these things so I know how to do them later. Even though she's never had a master, no one's really taught her anything, like, she's figuring it out, and give her enough time, she'll get it herself.
She's watched some YouTube tutorials, you know, but yes.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to episode 4. We realized while AJ was editing this episode that we talked way too long for one episode, so we decided to split it into 2. We actually recorded this the Friday following Memorial Day, and in light of everything that's happened the last few weeks, AJ and I have really been talking, and it was really kind of a blessing for us that we got to sit down with my best friend and talk about this episode for so long and have such enriching discussions with each other before we finished up and turned on the news that night, and kind of everything changed. So we felt like this one was worth spending a little bit more time with you guys. The Kyoshi warriors are awesome. Love spending a little more time with Suki, so no problem with that. We hope that you enjoyed this half of it, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.